I'm Russ Rapp, and welcome to my YouTube channel, where my new focus is on the process of awakening. The title of this video is He Who Must Not Be Named. And obviously, since I already said that my name is Russ Rapp, I'm not the focus of the discussion. But before we get into that, I wanted to talk a little bit more about this idea of awakening from a societal or cultural standpoint. We're obviously going through massive change around the globe. Humans are starting to wake up to a wider world. You can sense it, you can feel it around your communities, in your social circles. Things are different. We live in unprecedented times, as the cliche goes. And so let's give a little backstory, maybe a little context to the situation that we find ourselves in currently. I'm going to try to get into this in a real concise way. I could probably make many hours of a video talking about this topic, but essentially what it boils down to is the idea of this current process of awakening. It is focused primarily or heavily on this idea of knowledge and information. And so we, in our relatively recent past, we had the process of enlightenment, or the Enlightenment period, where a lot of logic and reason, science was developed, created a lot of inventions that changed the landscape of how we relate to ourselves and the world around us, creating automobiles, running water, flushable toilets, medicines, different things that we've developed throughout the last few centuries that's really changed how we live and in this world in a real tangible sense. And so we're kind of at the end stages of a lot of this period of enlightenment, which is heavily individualized, and we're moving into more of a collective focus, an awareness of the wider world, of how we interrelate. It's a sense of more of an internal focus on who we are, meaning and purpose. And so that's where we're kind of headed. And not to be confused with this idea of collectivism versus this idea of being part of a bigger group. Because oftentimes when one stage of human development is shifted into a new stage, that old stage and all the previous stages are seen as maybe inherently wrong or bad, and that's where the risk of new developments in human society can exist in a large sense, because of this need to dismantle what has come before. And it's kind of like, I used this analogy in a previous video, but this idea that we in this individualized state of consciousness or awareness, we are focused on certain things that has positive benefits and negative connotations, a materialistic focus, looking at the world in an objective sense. It can really help guide and direct our lives. So there's more inherent freedom in knowing how things work, how the world works, being able to understand motivations and that sort of thing. And so it's really helped us to build a society that can function. This idea of free market capitalism, there's inherent benefits to that in society, but then there's also the downsides of consumerism, materialism, egoism, all the bad stuff that we're aware of. So this new era that we're ushering into, as far as the shift of consciousness on the whole, shifting that center of gravity into a new way of being, The problem arises when it looks at this idea of individualism as an inherently bad thing or something that needs to be gotten rid of. And so that's where we need to learn from our past mistakes of trying to obliterate what has come before and realize that we need to transcend and include what has come before. Try to take in, learn from those mistakes, take in what did work, and try to leave behind what maybe those negative parts of previous stages of development has given us. So now we're in a stage of truly more of a focus in the mental sphere of this idea of information processing, systems theory, this idea of making connections, because a lot of times when it comes to previous science, it's very reductionistic or focused in its own little area of expertise and misses the forest for the trees. And so there's kind of this intuitive awakening of understanding the bigger picture that takes all these bits and pieces of data, knowledge, and information and weaves them together in a maybe a holistic understanding. So that's kind of where we find ourselves in this moment, and it's kind of different than the transition previously into scientific enlightenment, where a lot of our advancements aren't necessarily manifest in something in a day-to-day sense of changing our behaviors. No, I shouldn't say it like that. Changing our experience of physical comforts or technologies that really impact our lives in a tangible way. There's a lot of intangibles with the new developments as far as changes in culture, how we interrelate. So obviously the internet and social media plays a big part in that process. So if you looked at where we were, let's say 20, 30 years ago, we still drive cars, we still have similar homes. We're not, we're not at this point flying into outer space in a large sense of we're not traveling through time. Some of the scientific theories or science fiction that has come about as far as how the world works, but a lot of it is how we interact. We can push a button on a mini supercomputer essentially on our phone and order something that gets delivered to our door. Or logistically wise, for the economy, things are a lot more streamlined. We can process data, and so we can consolidate how we do things, be more efficient. So there's a lot of changes on the day-to-day as far as people being focused on a screen so much more now. We spend hours and hours interacting through a device, through technology, and that can be beneficial and detrimental. Obviously, people could become addicted to the technology and lose kind of the sense of physicality of being present in the world in a body. With that being said, as we move into this new phase of life, from an information standpoint, the more information we have, the more data points we can integrate into our understanding of ourselves internally, looking scientifically at our internal processes, and the more we can understand about the world around us, the better we can navigate and direct how we want to build our society, or how we want to grow and develop as an individual. And so I find it interesting where currently we have a situation, and this is where I'm going to kind of speak in generalities, because this idea of not being able to speak your mind or say things that you want to say, there's a term for it, but I'm not going to say the term, because there's so many different issues and situations that are currently happening in our world that companies like YouTube, that I'm putting this out on, and its parent company maybe don't want you to talk about, or will downplay what you're saying, or maybe not put it out in front of as many people as a way to control the information flow. And so if you look at history, when it comes to when you light books on fire, or when you destroy art and culture and that sort of things, or history books and the like, typically it's the bad actors in history that want to suppress knowledge, that want to obfuscate, that want to hide or withhold knowledge or destroy knowledge and information from all those of us in the public arena. And if you are familiar with the book from the year 1984, that was when it took place, I guess. The focus of that is controlling speech and having people only have one framework or one set of or source of information that they can build their belief systems on. And it's obviously a dystopic look on the future when it was written back in the 40s, I think. And so having said all that, when you look at history, when you look at literature, and you take those nuggets of wisdom and look at the world around us when it comes to social media and news and information, the ones that want to stifle voices, want to I almost said the word want to control what is being presented to the public on any sort of issue that I could list, but I'm not going to. You'll just have to figure all this out on your own through your own process. I would argue that those people are bad actors, because when it comes to, like I said, plugging in all these data points and understanding life and the world and yourself, the more information you can glean and put together in that tapestry, the better off you are in having a more complete picture of reality, and not this false sense of reality. And it's kind of up to you from an individual to decide what is true, or what is more likely to be true, or what is untrue. That's the challenge that you're given in a hyper individualistic world of being able to, and people call it like my truth, but essentially it is, taking the responsibility of making up your own mind, making up your own decisions, deciding what's true and what's not having someone decide it for you. And that in itself, in the process of awakening, can create anxiety or fear for many people, and so they typically avoid taking the responsibility and would rather have an expert or someone in a position of authority tell them what is true and untrue versus making up their own mind. So that's kind of where we find ourselves in this world that we live in. And so I've spoke for almost 15 minutes, and I haven't gotten into He Who Must Not Be Named, which is the title, which was the focus of this video. But that was kind of the groundwork for that. And ultimately, I'm not going to say who I meant as He Who Must Not Be Named, because if I name that individual, then YouTube may see it, and maybe I won't get as many eyes on this video. And whether it's someone who is alive today, or maybe someone who is no longer on earth, it's up for you to glean, but you know. The beauty is you can reach people without having to say the words, as long as you, I guess the goal of this video would be to create a sense of curiosity, of wanting to know, of wanting to search for truth. And if you can get to that point, then that's where things can open up for you. And it's not necessarily my job to tell you what to think. You know, I can help guide you on maybe ways to discern, but you have to be the one that does the work. So that's part of your process in our current phase of human development, is to do the work, to know, to discern, to find out what's real and what's not. Are you up for the challenge? Are you up for the journey? Because there's risk, but with risk comes reward. So I wish you well on your path, and may you be a peaceful warrior. And remember, it's good to sit in silence as well, because knowledge is just one piece. But I believe Einstein said you can't solve a problem from the same level of mindset or thought process that created the problem itself. So we must rise above. Thank you for listening. Peace.